up with your ear? Hey everybody, it's that time again. It's time for Diary of Physicist Farmgal. My name is Deborah and I'm coming to you here from my family farm in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks, where I like to do all the crafts. I knit, I crochet, I sew, I quilt, I make baskets, I make jewelry. I'll try any craft once and twice if I like it. I am also a university professor where I am a professor of physics and astronomy, and I teach classes to both physics majors and to general education science majors. And that's not right. They're just general education majors. They're not science majors. But I teach everything from the general education physical science class to advanced astrophysics. It just depends on what they need me to do. And I am also a farmer. I'm a third generation family farmer living on my farm here in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks. I raise grass-fed beef cattle, I raise horses, I have heritage poultry and show quality rabbits, and a retirement herd of miniature horses, miniature donkeys, a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules the roost, and now we have Princess Penny the potbelly pig. And as you can tell from my fidget butt co-host Willie here, I am fur kid mom to 14 dogs, 7 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside barn cats. So if any of all of that sounds interesting to you, I invite you to come along here as we start episode number 43. You are fidgety. 43 of Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. Okay, if you're looking for us on social media, my farm Facebook page is the same as my YouTube channel name. It is Buckthorn Farms, and I post lots of articles about farming and gardening and pictures of my animals and of my garden and stuff like that there. I am also found on both Ravelry and Instagram as Doc Firewoman, where I post, again, a lot of pictures on Instagram of my animals and stuff like that. And you can also find us on Ravelry, where there is a Ravelry group for the podcast, and I am just having a hard time today. Shoot, let me try that again. You can also find us on Ravelry, where there is a group for the podcast, Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, where you can find out about our giveaways and our make-alongs and just general chit-chat. I encourage you to go over there and check it out, because I do try to be fun about doing giveaways and things like that. And we do have several make-alongs going on, which we'll talk about just here very shortly. And last but not least, yes, you can find me on Twitter. But unless you share my political points of view, which are fairly socially liberal Democrat, that is probably not the place you want to follow me, because that is the place where I vent most of my political points of view. I keep it to a minimum elsewhere, but sometimes you just gotta let her rip, tater chip, and that's what I do on Twitter. Anyway, so if that kind of stuff gives you heartburn, you might want to avoid me there. But everywhere else, you can find me and interact with us on social media. To talk about some of the things we have going on in my group right now, I do have a couple of, a giveaway going on right now that will close on June the 1st. It is for 2 copies of the Fleece Flight shawl by Maria from Ninja Chickens. She has donated a copy, and then I am purchasing a copy, and that helps support the Shave 'em to Save 'em initiative from the Livestock Conservancy, because it is a pattern designed for rare breed yarns. And the purchase of the pattern donates directly to the Livestock Conservancy. Then if you knit the pattern up in program eligible yarn, you can count for several stamps for your Shave 'em to Save 'em passport, which I have talked about several times, but this is the Shave 'em to Save 'em program. I am currently working my way through a couple of projects for my first 2 entries, and then I've got a package coming from some friends of mine who purchased some things for me at Maryland's Sheep and Wool that I hope to get finished up this summer, and then we'll start up again in the fall looking for some more yarns So it's a good program. You can read more about it. I will link it below. And probably for my birthday, which is July the 2nd, I will be having a giveaway for another membership in the Shave 'em to Save 'em program if someone is interested in enrolling in the program. So that is the fleece flat shawl. That giveaway closes on June 1, and then I will contact the winners of the pattern prizes. Okay. Okay, so some other make-alongs that I have going on. The first one is the one that's ending the soonest, and that is the earth along. We are making little crocheted earths, and mine is over there, so I'm not going to get it, but you can go back and look at previous episodes and see my little earth that I made. I'm giving away a set of custom stitch markers that are from DK Graham, and they are the podcast logo little items on there, and I showed those on the last episode. I'm not going to dig those out right now, but that ends also on July the 2nd. So if you would like to get in on that, you still have plenty of time. You have over a month, and that pattern is very quick if you would like to make a little earth buddy to enter into that giveaway. And I encourage you to enter. There's not very many entered right now, and so you had pretty good chance of maybe winning a set of stitch markers if you will enter. So some of the other make-alongs that I have going on are the Farmer's Almanac make-along, and I am tardy again in getting my June write-up up. I am working on it right now. I thought maybe this evening or this afternoon I would try to finish it up and get it posted to Ravelry so you can start picking out some ideas for June. That is where there is an inspiration post from starting with things from the Farmer's Almanac and then pulling from other areas to include a nice diverse choice of things. And if you can post something and make your case for why it is valid for that month, I'll take it. I'm pretty easy to get along with. Also too, I have I Like Big Shawls and I Cannot Lie Cowl going on, which is a knit along only, and I am co-hosting that with Vanessa from A Historian Knits, and that is running until the end of the year, where you have to make shawls knitted only that are 1,200 plus yards as dictated by the pattern. So there's a lot of options for that, and I know that's a lot of yarn. Shirley just finished hers and she's like, woo, that's a lot of yarn. I'm a big girl, I like a big shawl, what can I say? Also, we have the Kit or Get Her Done, where we encourage you to use up those kits that you may have purchased because you thought they were pretty and you wanted to make the thing, but then somehow they never get made. And I'm looking around at my hoard of them right now. You know, mostly I'm doing these make-alongs because they're things that I need to work on, if you haven't figured that out already. So there's that one, and that can be any craft. Any craft, as long as it came in some kind of a kit form, is eligible for the Kit or Get Her Done. We also have the Never Have I Ever, where we're learning some new technique or some new skill or even a new craft, or using some new tool or something out. So it's a way to broaden our horizons as crafts people. So then last but not least, I am jointly hosting with Laura from A Crocheting Whovian the Creature Feature, which is amigurumis, and we're doing this all year. All of mine are all year long except for the earth one, which ends on my birthday. But all of mine are all year long. The Creature Feature this quarter is farm animals, and farm animals is pretty broad. So next quarter we'll switch in July to other animals, so wild animals, non-domesticated animals, or things you find on, you know, things that you find in the jungle or in the savannah or in the rainforest or whatever. There's just a whole conglomeration of things that you could make. So right now we're doing farm animals, and we're doing those through the end of June. And that's it for my make-alongs right now. We may start something on my birthday and run it till the end of the year for charity, but I've got to give that some thought. I have had some more prizes donated. I am going to pull from all the FOs from all of my make-alongs and donate. Someone donated, and I don't know if she wanted me to say her name or not, so if you do, Laura, let me know. She kindly donated a $25 Etsy gift card, and that I'm going to pull from all the FOs from all my make-alongs and have like one sort of grand prize winner, year-end prize winner that gets that $25 gift card. If you would like to donate a prize, let me know. I would sure appreciate it. I like to give away nice prizes. I have been accumulating things slowly but surely. So hopefully people will enjoy what they get and will continue to watch the podcast and participate in the make-alongs. Yeah, I've had some thoughts about why I'm doing this and things, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, but right now we're going to talk about some of the other people I know that are hosting make-alongs of some kind. We're going to start with, as soon as I wake my computer back up here because it's annoyingly gone to sleep. And of course I have typed in the most ridiculous password this time around. We have to change our passwords every 3 months at work. And so I've done one, which is you wouldn't think would be that hard, but for some reason I'm having the hardest time getting it typed out. So let's try that again. Okay. So I wanted to talk about a few different make-alongs that are going on to give you an opportunity to double dip. I will start with A Historian Knits, Vanessa, the A Historian Knits podcast. She has the Big Shawls one that she is co-hosting with me, but she also has a Cowl, which runs until the end of June for making cowls. The Yarn and I, which is Capi, is running one to do with Disney. So anything that's Disney themed, and I believe that runs until Mickey Mouse's birthday, which is November the 18th, and I remember that because that's my parents' anniversary, so that's easy to remember for me. So she is running that, and it can be a colorway name, it can be a pattern name, it can be literally, you can take it literally. I've already pulled out a little Easter egg for the June Farmer's Almanac, so you can easily double dip because there is a Disney thing that will be listed in the Farmer's Almanac for June, so you could double dip that way. So she is running that through, like I said, November the 18th, and over in her podcast group I believe she has talked about some free patterns as well as some paid for patterns that you can do that are eligible for her make-along. So, and she does, and I too strongly encourage double, triple, quadruple dipping. You know, dip as many times as you can dip. So this is not like queso. You can double dip and nobody gets mad. Okay, so the Two Sticks and String podcast, which is Jessica, formerly Army Wife Knit Life, has the Yoo-Hoo Big Stash Blowout going on, I believe, until the end of the year. Vanilla Sock Pig is co-hosting with Pinhook and Needles and A Crocheting Whovian the Autism Awareness Make-Along. And also she has her Multiple Myeloma Make-Along, which I believe runs until the end of May. So you may be too late for you to get in on that, but you can go read the rules. Nic Nac Knits has a Scrappy Cowl and a Sock-along going on, or a Sock It To Me Cowl going on, so you can go read the rules there. A Crocheting Whovian has, including, besides the creature feature and autism awareness, she has the Whip It Good make-along going on, where you finish things that were started prior to March 1, and Tortoise vs. Hare is coming up on that. Pinhook and Needles has the autism awareness, plus Sparkle Like the Star You Are, which is the Sparkle Yarn Along, plus Tea and Tails, which is a pretty wide open make along, and there's a lot of interaction on those chatter threads. Undead Yarn, Heidi has her Finish It or Frog It along going on, and also she has an along for people who make things out of her yarn. So go check those out. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about podcasting and why I chose to do this, because some of y'all are new, and I am not the typical knitting or crocheting podcast, and y'all have probably, if you've stuck with me for any length of time, you have figured that out. Because that's not what I ever intended to be. You know, this is not specifically a knitting podcast. It's not specifically a crocheting podcast. It's a podcast about my life, essentially. And while craft is a huge part of my life, so is science, and so is my farm. And I had to sit back and think about this for a while because it's very easy, and I have seen this happen to other people. It's very easy to get caught up in your own mythology, so to speak, where you become a legend in your own mind, and then you start to treat people poorly, or you start to treat people like somehow you're above them. And I never want to be that person. I don't care if all I ever have is 50 views a time, as long as I've got my good and loyal following that I know I have, and I appreciate y'all. I am happy. This is not about me becoming famous for wearing overalls and talking about science and reading poems at the end of my podcast. This is not about me trying to get more likes than somebody else. I hate that kind of competitive stuff. The only person I'm trying to compete with is me. I'm not trying to be more famous. I'm not trying to suck up to people that are famous. You know, and if I ever were to gain some notoriety, I hopefully would not treat people like I think I'm a little bit better than them, or be rude to them, or act like I'm some sort of celebrity. I don't think I'll ever get to that point anyway, but you know what I'm saying. We all put our pants on one leg at a time, and if you don't wear pants, then you put your skirt on 1 foot at a time, unless you're really dexterous and jump in that sucker. So let's not act like we do things any magically differently. And so I had to get some perspective about that, because it's very easy to allow myself to feel like, well, this person's getting more views than me, or these chatter threads are more active, or oh, people are not really participating. I wish they would. Maybe they don't like what I'm doing. The whole point of me starting to do this was because I felt like I had something interesting to share, and I wanted to share my love of science and of farming and of craft, and maybe come at it from a slightly more pragmatic way than some of the podcasts out there I were seeing, because I operate on a limited budget. I have to do things on a budget, and I have to be pragmatic, because my animals come first. My farm comes first, and that is, I have never made any bones about that whatsoever. You know, I know I get competitive when I talk about the fair, but I get competitive against myself to strive to do better than I did the year before. I am not competing with other podcasters. I am not trying to be famous. I am not trying to be someone more than I am, which is who I am, you know. And anybody that acts otherwise, I tend to avoid those people. So, that being said, we are going to move on now and talk about finished objects, y'all. I have some finished objects to share. Yay me. Willie, can you get down for just a minute? Can you get down for just a minute? He don't think he wants to do that, but he's going to have to. Because I have some finished objects to share. Can you hop down? You can get right back up. Okay. The first thing I'm going to show is what all my other stuff is sitting in. I finished my basket. Woohoo! This is my Southwestern style double wall twill market basket from Jill Choate Basketry. It was a kit, so yay for Kit or Get Her Done. It was a kit from Jill Choate Basketry, and this sucker was the most challenging basket I have made to date. You weave the inside in just a plain flat reed basket. I don't know how well you can see with all that stuff in it, but it's a plain flat reed basket, and then you come back, and I don't know if how well you can see. Oh, okay. How well you can see, but there's all these little stakes that get twined onto the base. There's 188 of them. So you can see them better there. Okay, 188 of these little stakes. And then that's what you weave the twill pattern in. Okay. And I got the inside part of the basket done fairly quickly. And then that twill brought me to a screeching halt. Took me a while, but the other day I got tired of it riding in the back of my car, because that's where I had left it to keep the cats from messing with it. I went, I'm finishing this basket today. Well, it took me till the next day, but I finished the twill in one sitting, that night. I had it about a third of the way done, and I finished it the rest of the way. Oh, the mail carrier dropped off a package. I have to go see what that is. And then I sat down and finished it the rest of the way in one sitting. And then I did the top. Now, one thing that I am going to do, because it has a fairly large base, I'm actually going to put braces on this base like I did that. If you saw the baker's basket that I made Miss Betsy at Christmas time, it has braces across the bottom of them. I'm actually going to put braces on this so that the base doesn't sag. But that is done. Stick a fork in it. It is done. So, yay. Now, very proud that that is finished. Then I also finished my Just Feel Better shawl. It is blocked. I have not woven in the ends yet, but this is the Just Feel Better by Caleisha Ryan from the Quirky Monday podcast. Okay, it is a free pattern on Ravelry. It is a very easy, beginner-friendly, for sure, crocheted shawl. Okay, you can make it as large as you want. You can really make it in any yarn that you would like. I chose to use fingering weight yarn, and so I am very pleased with how this has turned out. The colorways that I have used are the blue and the red are both sparkle. The blue is Fireworks and the red is Wonder Woman, and these are both from Coop Dyeworks on their Twinkle Toes sparkle base. And then the neutral, which has flecks of red and blue in it, is from Stress Knits, and it is part of the West Wing Yarn Club. It's on her favorite base, and the colorway is called Four Red Lights, and that is a West Wing reference. So I am very pleased with how this turned out. It's a nice, big, cozy crocheted shawl. And again, it was one of those that was really easy to work on when I was doing planetarium shows or riding in a car, because it's a very simple stitch pattern and it's an easy, quick memorizing of the repeat pattern. So I am very pleased with how that has turned out. So I just need to weave my ends in. I have already washed it and blocked it. I just need to weave in the ends. I was very proud of myself. As soon as I finished it, I just went right to the sink with it, or actually I washed it in one of my Dutch ovens, my enameled Dutch ovens, not my cast iron one, but it's a cast iron, but it's enameled. I stuck it in that and washed it, and then I took it outside and blocked it in the bed of my truck, because farm trucks have multiple uses. So I got that done. Then in my April 9 Designs cute little doggies bag here, this is a nice little canvas bag from Charlotte at April 9 Designs. I have also completed my Dissent cowl. Okay, the Dissent cowl, and this is a pattern by Carissa Browning, and this is mosaic color work, and it is supposed to look like Ruth Bader Ginsburg's Dissent collar. Oh, let me put this in the back. So it is a nice cowl. It flares out at the base, and you can kind of tuck this top part in here if you want to, where the polka dots are. You can leave it up. It's however you want to do it. But it's mosaic color work. So I'll hold that up and see if you can see the mosaic pattern there. Okay. And the colorways I used for it, the dark is called I Don't Want to Be Fixed. And the the variegated colored portion is called Votes for Women. And these are both colorways on the Eleanor DK base by Nerd Girl Yarns. Okay, so I have completed that as well. So very, very straightforward, nice introduction to color work. It's not stranded, it's mosaic, so you get kind of used to the rhythm of switching the colors a little bit. Okay, now, my other finished objects are, I jokingly wrote down a note to myself to call this the Ghost of Cross Stitch Past. Because I have not really cross stitched in quite some years. I think the last piece I actually worked on or started was before I moved home, which was in 2005. And so I just kind of bagged everything up or boxed it up. And how I've managed to keep up with these things all these years is a minor miracle. But I pulled out some things and I'm like, I am so close to being finished. Why don't I just finish those? And so I did. I've showed a couple of these, or one of these already, but one of them will be a new thing to you to see, but it's a very old thing. So I finished my little kit from Janlin, Gamekeeper Santa, the little ornament. So I finished him. So there he is. So he's got a little goat. It's not really a gamekeeper. He's really a farmer. I don't know why. I guess the people that wrote the title didn't know the difference. But anyway, so he's got a chicken and a goose and then a goat right here. He's got some little berries on his hat. He's got his little mustache. And then I just put some felt on the back of it to cover up my stitches. So there's me a little Christmas ornament for my farming Christmas tree. Then I had a little kit to make a pin. This is from Mill Hill Beads, and it's a little pin kit, and I was almost finished with it. So I pulled out, finished a little bit of stitching that needed to be done, and I see that my glue is not stuck right there, so I got to fix that. And then this is on perforated paper, just like the ornament is. I don't know how well you can see that. There you go. Okay. And it's got a little treasure, as they call it, on there. A little bead. It's a little star-shaped bead. So it's a little beaded pumpkin sitting on a moon. And then it's got the pin back. So I, again, glued some felt on the back and cut it out. And that made my pin. Now, the next thing that I have, I've got one of these in Works in Progress. I've got one of these in Future Crafting. And then I have a completed one. The very first time I went to Scotland with some friends of mine was 1997. My friend's family lived north of Aberdeen in Fraserburgh, or what they call the Broch. And they had never really done a lot of the touristy stuff. Well, of course, they take me over there, and I'm like, oh, let's go see this, you know, or that. And that happens a lot, doesn't it? Where you live somewhere your whole life, and you may have a lot of, you know, sites that are there that are kind of touristy or beauty spots or whatever. And you never go see them because, well, they're there and you'll just go some other time. And then you never go. So I kind of drug them all over. We went to some different places. But I was still thought I enjoyed cross stitch back then. And I still do. But I was still more active in cross stitching back then. So I picked up these little kits, and they're little cards, and they're by Textile Heritage, and I got one that had the Scottish thistles on it, and I had almost finished this. I just needed to do the back stitching, and I know I started it on that trip, so I started this in 1997 and I finished it last week. So it's a little card. You just put the finished cross stitch in and glue this shut, and then you have a little card. And now as I notice it, I put that the wrong way around, but who cares, because I wasn't ever going to use it as a card. My intention was, I bought 3 over the years. I bought 3 of these. I think this was the only one I got the first time, and I think I got the other 2 the next time we went, but I don't remember. The intention was to have a set of 3 little sort of small pieces of stitch work to hang up. So I finished that. Okay, so yeah, so those are my finished objects. I have some quasi-finished objects, but I'll wait and share those because I've really got one more little but fairly important thing to do to them. So I'm not going to call them a finished object just yet. So those are the things that I finished this week, or this last 2 weeks, I should say. So now we're going to move on and talk about works in progress. Okay, so for works in progress, I have a few different things to show this week. I have been actually making some really good progress. I straightened up my craft room again. That's a perpetual thing that has to happen. But I have actually been doing pretty good about finishing and picking out things and focusing on those. So the first thing that I will show is the second of those little charm cross stitches that I talked about. It was, I believe I purchased this on their second trip to Scotland, and it's a little Celtic knot card. And unfortunately, I have lost the instructions for it. It is one thing that I did not manage to keep up with. But fortunately, the pattern is fairly simple to follow, so I am working on finishing that. I had the hard part done. I had the knot work already completed. So doing the stuff around the outside is actually not that hard to follow just from the picture. So when I'm all done with that, it'll go in this little green card here. And that'll go with my little thistle to hang up on the wall. So I'm going to put that back in the bag with this other stuff so I can keep up with it. Okay, then another piece of cross stitch that I am working on. This I started when my mother was in the heart hospital in 1999. I went through a period of time where I was really interested in Noah's Ark themed things, and I think that was because I liked the animals. So I bought several different little kits that had to do with that, and this one is got little different animals on it. And I had started this when my mother, she had to have her aortic valve had to be replaced, and then when they were doing the stress test on her, they found that she had a aortic aneurysm. So they were lucky they caught that, because that would have been fatal had it ruptured. But they replaced the valve with a cow valve, and we had lots of lots of jokes were made about that afterwards, you know, with, oh, is the bull going to pay more attention? Or maybe, you know, Dad, he always said Dad paid more attention to the cows than he did you. So, so for a long time, we had a big laugh about that. She came through that with flying colors. You know, she was a very resilient woman. So she had that valve replacement. And, so I was working on this while she was in the heart hospital. I would drive back and forth to go down there and see her. And so I just put it down and never picked it up. So I have picked it back up. I had already done this much of the person, but I had not started on the animals. So I've just started working on the animals a little bit to get those done. Okay. And then I probably will end up giving this as a gift to somebody. I don't know who yet, but you know, it's always good to have some things ready on hand for gifts, I think. So again, just another little cross stitch, because that was my gateway craft, was cross stitching. That was the first thing that I learned to do. And funnily enough, the thing that the mail carrier just delivered was the book that got me started, because my mother, when she stopped smoking, there was none of this Chantix or patches or any of that stuff back then, because that was probably in 1984 when she stopped smoking, and my entire family stopped. They just said, okay, if you're gonna quit, we're gonna quit too. So everybody quit. My granddad, my dad, and my mom all quit cold turkey, and they just quit. They just, you know, they just said quit. And my mom decided she needed something to do with her hands, so she learned to cross stitch. So I learned to cross stitch too. And sometimes you get sentimental, and I got on eBay the other day looking for the book that and I'm pretty sure I still have her book somewhere. But I thought, well, I'm going to get a new copy of it so I can write on it. And the mail carrier actually just delivered it, so I'll show that in acquisitions. But let me share another really ghost of cross stitch past here. When I was in college, I was very fond of carousel horses. I don't really know why, because I loved horses, period. And so carousel horses were sort of my my go-to, because I was not allowed to ride horses when I was younger because my grandmother was convinced I would die. You know, I guess being the only grandchild, that's the downside of it, is you don't want that one to die. So I couldn't swim. I couldn't ride a bicycle. I learned to swim at 45. I learned to ride a bicycle at 17. And I learned to ride horses at 30. Always loved horses, but carousel horses seemed relatively safe, so I got to like those. But there was a cross-stitch book that had come out of carousel horses. And between my mother and I, my mother made this one, and she cross-stitched that onto a sweatshirt for me, which I still have. I need to cut it apart and make a pillow out of it. And then I did these two. I did the Armored Horse, and then this one was called Southern Belle, I think. And these were all copies of different carving companies' styles. different carving company styles of horses. And let's see what this one was called. Yeah, Southern Belle. And it gives a little bit of the history of the different types. Well, then I started, where's it at? This one, the Rose Horse by Philadelphia Toboggan Company. I started that in undergraduate school, and then I put it up. And the other day, bearing in mind I graduated from college in 1992, I pulled it out. All I had left to do was the pole and this much of the back feet and then the back stitching. So I completed all the cross stitching, and now I'm working on the back stitching. Okay, now the only bad thing is back in the day we didn't have all this fancy stuff like grime guards and needle minders and all that, so I've got a little bit of a rust spot there, and I need to put a needle minder on here instead of just sticking my needle through the fabric. But yeah, so I've started doing the back stitching on the Rose Horse by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company. I don't know if you can tell or not, but these roses have what's called blending filament in them, so it's a sparkly thread that you hold with your floss to make it well, sparkly. So I started doing the back stitching, and hopefully we'll get that done in time for the fair. So anyway, that's the Philadelphia Toboggan Company Rose Horse, and I'll get that knocked out eventually. Okay, so that's my cross stitching that I've been working on. I have also been working on a couple of other works in progress. The one that has the least amount of work is the Changes shawl. I've only put a few rows on it, and I don't really, probably shouldn't even really show it because I don't really have much to show for it. But I have gotten through one repeat of the center section with the little, I don't remember what she calls them, baubles or nuggets or pimples or dimples. Pimples is not nice. Dimples. Anyway, so I'm working on that. That is the Changes shawl by the Knitting Expat. And the way it's constructed, you never have more than 200 stitches, I believe it is, on the needle. So you start with the center section first, and then you pick up stitches and add to it. So I am knitting that with Kimmery Nic Nacs. The yarn, the base color is called Steel. And then I've got a package of her neon rainbow minis that I'm going to be using for my contrast colors. And then, boy, this is not organized very well. And then that's all housed in my April 9 Designs alpacas bag. So, yeah, so I'm not very far on that. I've worked on that just a very little bit. But Kirsty of Grianaig Creations and I have decided to have like a little friends knit along on that. For her neck blanket mal, and I forgot to mention that when I was talking about make-alongs. Kirsty and of Grianaig Creations and Fiberpunk are co-hosting a Cowl where you have to use at least 2 100-gram skeins of yarn worth in this shawl. So this will definitely qualify, and the Changes actually qualifies for my big shawls make along too. So I've got that working on it. Then Miss Betsy and I took a ride the other day down to look at the river to see how high the river was, and so I have been back to work on my basket by Purl Soho. This is the Crocheted Stash Basket by Purl Soho. It's a free pattern, and the last time you saw this I had just completed the base, so now I'm actually working on the sides. Okay, so it turns up the sides. I'm trying to hold it where it looks like something. It's kind of misshapen right now. I'm definitely going to have to stiffen this, I think, when I get done. But I'm just going up the sides now. So there's a 4-row repeat to go up the sides. I'm making this out of black Welsh Mountain Sheep wool or yarn from Desert Wear Farms. And this is one of my very first Shave 'em to Save 'em projects. So this is Crocheted Stash Basket by Purl Soho. And the reason I decided to make a basket is this yarn, if you read about it, it's a very rustic yarn, and it's a lot of times used for rugs and things like that. So I thought, well, that'd be perfect for a basket. And so you can never have too many baskets, in my opinion. So I worked on that while she was driving the other day. Okay, then the next thing that I have worked on is the WIP that I have the most progress to share with, but I haven't finished yet. And this is the Life Changes shawl by Laura Concert of a Crocheting Whovian. Let me find the picture here. What do I do with it? Well, I thought I stuck it in here, but maybe I didn't. Oh well, shoot. Oh, well, you'll get the idea. It's by a Crocheting Whovian's Laura Concert. It's one of her original designs, and it's a very beautiful shawl, and it's a very easy knit. It's an excellent beginner-friendly knit, in my opinion. And the last time you guys saw it, I was down here by the little Nemo Progress Keeper. And so I am all the way into section 6 of 11. So I just started section 6. Okay, and I am knitting this out of the black is just a Malabrigo sock, and then the bright is Honeybee Knits Be Positive, which was her Tits Out Collective colorway. So I am just starting section 6. There are 11 sections, so getting there. And it's a very easy knit. It's a very enjoyable knit. It's easy social knitting. It's very good for like a knit night or visiting or whatever, or if you want to watch TV or whatever. It's a very nice pattern. So that is the Life Changes shawl by Laura Concert, and she is having a knit along for that, where I believe until the end of June, and I think she is co-hosting that with the Nic Nac Knits podcast, so you can get in on the knit along action there. Plus it'll qualify for the neck blanket mal. It won't qualify for big shawls because it's only 2 skeins, but it will qualify for Kirsty's. And then this is in my Utterly Adorable Knits Moon Phases bag. So I love that fabric. Isn't that cute? Okay, so all right, my other works in progress to share. I'm almost done with these, but because I am stingy, I know in my office at work I have the cord I want to use for my drawstrings. I made myself some big project bags, and this is using the pattern by Jenny Baker from In Color Order. I believe you can get instructions for one size for free from her website, but I went ahead and purchased all of that. Oh, and now FedEx is pulling up in my yard, so I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I was kind of surprised to see that. I had ordered myself some new riding breeches, yay, and one pair of them came in, so that was what was being delivered. So we start our big riding hootenanny next week at the barn, so I was glad to get those. But anyway, so this is the In Color Order by Jenny Baker. This is her lined drawstring bag, and it's a great pattern. I went ahead and purchased the full pattern simply because I like to support makers whenever possible. And I know that there's only so many ways to make bags, but if somebody's trying to give you a tool to make, to diversify or make a lot of different, give you a lot of options, I feel like you should pay for that. I really am opposed to just outright copying of somebody else's stuff and using it like your own, and not giving them any credit. You know, I think that you should at least buy the pattern. You know, it wouldn't be that hard to figure this out if you bought one of her bags and just kind of deconstructed it. But I'd rather just pay for the pattern, and then it gives you a lot of options, plus you can customize it. It gives you a way to customize it. So what I did was, I had several fabrics that I had been saving. Some of them were gifts, and some of them were ones that I had purchased. So I decided to make myself some large size bags to carry around, either Afghans or like my corner to corner blocks in that I might have 2 or 3 skeins attached to, or maybe an amigurumi that I had some big skeins of acrylic, or a sweater. And so I made several bags, and so this is the first one. I love that little fox panel. And then I had this scrap of fox material left over from an apron that I had made. So these are will all be drawstrings. I've just got to get the cord that I want to use, and I know I've got a thing of it in my office, and I'm like, why buy another one when you know you have one? But I'll probably give in and buy one eventually. But anyway, so there's this beautiful fox pattern. Okay, and then this is a fabric that was a gift. It's nice farm animals here. Got your cows and your horses and chickens and pigs and sheep and goats and everything on it. And then again, these are all lined, you know, here, so they look nice on the inside. This is another little panel that I had found, and I fussy cut the panel to separate out the kitty cats, and so they're different on different sides. And then there's a couple of smaller ones up here. And this is kind of long and strange looking, but for those big acrylic skeins to stand up in here, I thought that would be a nice size. Okay. Then I got this great fabric given to me with the space stuff on it. Of course, you got to have some space stuff there. And I lined that with some a fabric remnant of some suns that I had. And then last but not least, I made myself a really nice large sweater bag out of the periodic table fabric that someone gifted me. I love this fabric so much. That is so awesome. Okay, so I just got to get the drawstrings put in those, and those will be finished objects. Yeah, so those are my works in progress for this week. So now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about what my future crafting plans are. Okay, in future crafting, I have again a couple of different types of crafts to show here. The first one is my friend Tommy, who did the mugs and the yarn bowl for me that I showed several times ago that has pottery wheels. She wanted to do some trading, so I traded her for a mug to make her a fruit basket, and this is what she had in mind. It's a two-tiered fruit basket. This is a kit that I purchased from NC Basket Works, and they give you all the materials and all the directions that you need to make it. So I just got that in the mail a couple of days ago, so I need to get this put together for her. Then I have several fabrics that I have pulled with the intention of making bags or aprons or whatever. This is a bag that I want to make with these llamas. And this is a nice twill. Okay. So I'll probably get that made up soon. Then I also have had this fabric for a while, and I'm pretty sure I've shown it on here before, of an apron that I want to make myself. I had an apron swap a few years ago, and I made this apron, this exact apron with this same fabric to swap with somebody. So I loved it so much I ordered myself some. Okay, and somehow I ended up ordering a lot more of this contrast fabric, so I figured this will make great project bag lining or something like that. But I love this fabric with the foxes and the woodland scenes on it. So that's going to be an apron. Because again, I love aprons, never remember to wear them, but I do love them. And I've also had this fabric for quite a while that I believe that I will make into an apron. I bought this originally, I was going to make kitchen curtains out of it. And it's got like old, kind of supposed to look like, I think, feed sack logos and stuff like that on it. But I'm going to make myself an apron out of it because I think now with my kitchen I'm going to go with more bright colors instead of the pastel-ies. So I'm going to make myself an apron or two out of that. Now, in terms of my needlepoint and needlework crafting, I have a couple of things to show. The first one is I want to start this piece of plastic canvas. It's a welcome pumpkin sign. This is a Jim Shore design. I have a few of his things in my Christmas stuff, and I also have one of his Halloween pieces. But I want to make this because I thought it would be really cute. Plus I can enter it in the fair. There's a plastic canvas category. So I got to get to work on that. And then several years ago, y'all know my love for going to thrift stores and finding, you know, bargains and things of that nature. And I don't know off the top of my head where the picture that goes with this is at. Maybe it's right here. Yes, okay, good deal. In a comforter bag of a bunch of different uncompleted things that I had found, I found a set of pillowcases that were magnolias. Now, whoever had started them had not paid attention, and they had sewed one of the pillowcases shut. And I think I had showed this before. So what I did the other day is I picked out all of the stitching. Okay, so these are stamped cross stitch. I picked out all of the stitching. It still has the pattern. And most importantly is it had the key for the floss. It did not provide the floss originally. You had to buy it anyway, which was great because then that meant I had the key. So I went and purchased all the floss that I needed to do this. And I've got a set of pillowcases. What I want to do is do the cross stitching first, and then what I think I'm going to do is either line them. For sure going to do some border edging on them up here to make them look a little nicer, or maybe put an accent fabric down here, because they're just kind of plain. And if I'm going to do all that work, because they're going to be a gift for somebody. And I don't think she watches my podcast, but Miss Betsy loves magnolias. She has a huge magnolia tree in her on her property. And so I thought, well, those would be a perfect gift for her. So when I finish the carousel horse, and see, this one's even cut open here, so it wouldn't be that hard to line it. So I'm going to take this apart and fix it, and then stitch these up, because really there's not that much work on them if you look at them. It's not a huge thing, you know. So I'm going to make those for Miss Betsy as a Christmas gift. Okay, so those are my two up-and-coming needlework projects. Again, I've got the floss for that. I just got to get started on it. In terms of fiber art type things, these are not really future. They're things that I've kind of started but have back-burnered. So I want to get back to my Fading Point. Okay, Fading Point by Joji Locatelli. I picked it up and did a few rows on it, and then I've put it back down. So I really need to pick it up again before I forget about it. So this is where I'm at. I'm just getting started on it. Okay, but I'm using Leon Alexander yarns on it. And oh, I forgot to mention also, Leon Alexander Yarns just put out a great new pattern called It's My Party and I'll Pie If I Want To. It's a pie shawl pattern. And so Logan and I are going to work together, and I'm going to host a knit along starting this fall for his pie shawl. We're going to run it for 6 months, so it's going to end on Pie Day. Yay! So, but I'm working on that. I need to get back to work on that a little bit. Once I finish Laura's shawl, maybe I'll pick that back up. And then, see what's in here. This is one of my surprises. I picked a random project bag. Oh, this is the Arkansas Yarn Crawl shawl from last fall. Okay, this is the Celasta shawl, and it was a pattern written by someone from Little Rock, Arkansas, and then I purchased at a yarn shop in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, a locally dyed skein of yarn. This is called Till We Meet Again. And the shop was selling the little beads to go with it. So I've got that in my bag of stuff to get started eventually. So I just kind of went through and filled up project bags with patterns and yarn and everything, so then I can just grab one and go. So that's pretty much all of my future crafting, I think, that I'll share with you this week. So now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about acquisitions. Okay, I have a few acquisitions to share with you this week. Some are fibery, some are sewing, some are needlework related. So let's get started. So, you know, I love String Theory Colorworks. I love their yarn. I love the colorway names, but I have told myself you cannot buy any more self-striping yarn until you get some of the things knit up that you have already bought. So I've got, in my pile of project bags, I have some socks started with her different yarns, but I didn't tell myself I couldn't buy any more Progress Keepers. So she had some stitch marker Progress Keeper kits or sets that are just adorable. The first one is this little Progress Keeper that says, "She believed she could, so she did." So I thought, yeah, I like that. And I was actually going to order more than one of these to give away as a podcast prize, but this was the last one, so I'm going to be stingy. Then she had a set of rainbow for Pride Month. She had a set of rainbow stitch markers, and what I loved about these is these were all weather related. There is a there's a Pegasus, but there's a lightning bolt and a little cumulus cloud and a rainbow and the sun. And I just thought those were wonderful. And then last but not least, man, am I a sucker for dinosaurs. I don't really know why, but she had a she had a set of Tyrannosaurus Rex markers. I don't know how well y'all can see those. But there he is. Ah, T-Rex. Oh, I should have washed my fingernails before I did this podcast. I've been working outside this morning, can't you tell? Put little Tyrannosaurus Rex markers. So I thought those were adorable. Didn't need them, but I wanted them. So, you know, sometimes you got to live just a little. I was lucky enough to win an Etsy gift card from a Crocheting Whovian. Had a 500 subscriber giveaway, and she gave away a $25 gift card plus a pattern on Ravelry, and I was the lucky winner because the Grand Canyon is a geological wonder, Laura. It's a geological wonder. And oh, before I forget, hi Kim. Yes ma'am, I know your name. Kim's our gal. If she can't make it, we're in bad shape. How's that? Yay, Kim. Okay. But anyway, I won a $25 gift card, and I had just seen, because I started following the hashtag some way or another of quilt fabric, and that is a way to spend a lot of money, is what I have concluded. But I saw this adorable fabric on that hashtag, and so I started following the shop that had it, and I purchased myself a yard of this fabric. And then when I got on their shop, they also had these wonderful horses. Now, the other thing that I have found on that hashtag, and y'all may or may not remember, because you may not be old like me, there was a children's artist called Ed Emberley. And he had these little books where you started with very basic shapes, and you could draw different faces, or you could draw monsters, or you could draw animals or fantastic creatures. I loved those books. Loved those books. Coveted them in the library so much. There is a series of Ed Emberley fabric coming out, and there is a store that has a pre-order up for it, and I have got it saved on Etsy as one of my favorites. So when I get paid, I am purchasing the pre-order for that fabric because I love Ed Emberley. I need more fabric. Like, I need to be kicked in the hiney, but don't care. I'm gonna get it. Anyway, so this was part of my this was paid for by my winnings from Laura's podcast. I also bought a couple of cross stitch patterns that I had been wanting to. And then she was kind enough to point out the other day there was a sale on Joann Fabrics, and I have a beautiful bag that was given to me by a podcast viewer that's made just for me out of this Science Girl fabric. Well, then they also had their Science Girl fabric, and it was on sale, so I purchased enough that I'm going to make myself a pair of pants. I'm going to make myself some science culottes. Well, pants, not really culottes, but wide-legged pants, which I guess are kind of culottes, out of the Science Girls. Yay! Now, I also bought this, and I don't have a clue what I'm going to do with this. But when you see it, you'll see why I had to get it. They had a fabric panel of the periodic table. And it's got little pictures of what the elements are used for. Is that not cool? And it's accurate. It's got them all the way out to 118. Yay! So I had to get that. Don't really know what I'll do with it. I can make myself a gigantic pillowcase, I guess. Don't really know what I'll do with it, but I'm going to make something, because who could pass up a fabric panel of the periodic table of the elements? Not me. Oh gosh. Okay, so that's enough of fabric. Republic of Unicornia Yarns in Atlanta, Georgia was having a sale, and a lot of the proceeds went to the American Civil Liberties Union, which is a group I can get behind for sure, especially in these times. And they had this beautiful bag. I am obsessed with whales, apparently, because I needed another project bag, about like I needed some more fabric, about like I needed to be kicked in the hiney. But this was on sale, and so I couldn't pass it up. So this is Republica Unicornia, and she's out of Atlanta, Georgia. And here's the cool thing about it. First of all, her little zipper pulls are all unicorns. I don't know how well you can see that. But here's what I didn't realize about it. It's sparkly on the inside. Yay. So this is a nice big project bag size, and this is a nice heavy, feels like a canvas, like a lightweight canvas. Okay, Stress Knits had their West Wing Yarn Club installment, the next one, and I of course opted to purchase it, and this is their next installment, and it is called Like the Cracker, which is a reference to the Goldfish Gale that Danny bought CJ. So I love that colorway. It's a pale, like a minty pale green with bright shots of gold and orange in it. So I'm really pleased with that. Now, I'm sure you've been dying to know what the mailman dropped off, or the postal carrier, as Megan from Numbers would say, not mailman or mailwoman, postal carrier dropped off. My mother, as I mentioned, when she stopped smoking, she's learned to cross stitch, and one of the things that she did was she bought this book. It's The Little Things That Count, 100 Mini Designs. And she started at the beginning, and she made every single one of the ones in here, and made them as Christmas ornaments. So there's all the different ones. And I remember asking her for some of them to give away as gifts to people, and I'm sure that a lot of them didn't really appreciate the amount of work, because, you know, when you're in 8th grade, you don't really appreciate how much work these things are. And you're kind of a little snot yourself, and you don't really appreciate how much work your mom put into something. But I still have several of these that she made, and we hang them on the tree every year at Christmas. But I got on my mind about these the other day, and I decided I wanted to get a copy of this book and make some of these ornaments. Kind of in honor of my mom. And what might be thinking about it is at the thrift store, I found a whole bunch of these wooden frames. These little round wooden ornament frames that I could use, and I thought, remember that book Mom had? The first, probably looks like about the first half of them, or not quite the first half. The first 44 of them are all Christmas themed, and then you have just some different people, the different people from around the world, and then you have kids, and then you have like a Raggedy Ann and Andy, and excuse me, and then you have some little animals and like some baby themed ones and different stuff. So, but I purchased this, and I thought I'm going to make some of those just because it'll put me in mind of my mother, kind of in honor of her. So, and then the book itself has, you know, different ideas that you can do with it and everything. So this book was published, I want to say, in like 1980. Yeah, 1980. So there's a blast from the past. 100 little things. It's the little things that count. And I think that there was a book called More Little Things That Count, or something like that came out after this, but I didn't look very long to see if I could find it too. But I found that. So those are my acquisitions. That's kind of a lot today. I'm sorry. And that's all of the crafty content. So that's what you're here for. I hope I'll see you next time. Otherwise, we're going to move on and talk about some science. Okay, so here in the physicist part of the Physicist Farmgal world, we have finished up our year-end planetarium show. School is out. I am teaching an online class in Intersession and in Summer 1, but it's fairly low impact. I just answer a lot of emails and try to keep up with the grading portion of it. It's the general educational physical science class, so I try to make that class meaningful to them. I try to share videos or share commentary that is meaningful to them in terms of, this is how science impacts your everyday life. This is how science literacy matters. So like some of the videos that I have shared with them are, there's a video of a child, you know, if you go to like a museum of discovery or something where they have the big Van de Graaff generator and the kid puts their hand on it and it pops and sparks and their hair stands on end, and people are like, oh my gosh, why isn't that kid being electrocuted? Well, the video explains that. Because it's the volts that jolt, but it's the mills that kill. It's the voltage that jolts and pops, but it's the milliamps or the current flow that's dangerous that you have to think about. And we'll talk about that another day. I've also shared a video on how, there's a great little video on how deep is the ocean. And there's one called Rubber Ducks Ahoy, where there were some ducks that were spilled out in the Pacific Ocean from a cargo ship, and how they followed the ocean currents and actually ended up coming to land over in the East Coast and help people track the ocean currents. And then I've got one about alternative energy and why do we go to space and what is your daily radiation dosage. So these are things that I want them to kind of start thinking about just in terms of how science impacts their day-to-day life. Also too, you know, I'm going to be teaching a teacher workshop in a couple of weeks about Thomas Nuttall's journey, which is the project that we've been working on with the Adkins kids, or we worked on with the Adkins kids, to kind of broaden everybody's horizons in the state of Arkansas about that, because it was a major event that occurred, and it's not something that really gets addressed typically when you teach Arkansas history. So I think it's important to bring out the point that he contributed a lot to our understanding of the natural history of Arkansas. So that's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm also going to be helping out with Camp Connect. One of my students has volunteered to do a circuit activity with some kids who are on the autism spectrum. They do a week-long camp for them, and one day we're going to do an activity at UCA where some of our physics students are going to get together and do a circuits activity, and then I'm going to do a planetarium show. But we're done with our school group planetarium shows for the year. The kids are all out of school around here now. So that part of my life kind of slows down a little bit in a way, but then again not, because next week I'm actually going to be presenting to the Fairfield Bay Sterling Scholars speaker series, which is in conjunction with the Rotary Club meeting, about black holes and about the discovery or the photographic evidence of the black hole that was recently such a big splash in the news. So I've got to start putting together my presentation for that. So I kind of change focus a little bit, but I don't really slow down that much. So that's kind of that part of the science piece. I've been paying attention to a couple of things that are going on my social media account. One of the things is one of my friends, I had posted a picture of a petunia bush or a petunia plant, one of my hanging baskets, and she asked me, is that a morning glory? Because the flowers are similar in shape, but I actually thought, well, I wonder if they're related, and I looked them up. They are in fact not related at all. They have different leaf shapes, first of all, and morning glories, the flowers are one and done. They open up in the morning, they bloom. When the day gets too hot, they close, and then that's it for that flower, and a new one will open up the next day. The seeds are different sizes, and the petunias are more persistent flowers. So the morning glories are actually in a family called the Convolvulaceae family, and they're related to sweet potatoes, because if you think about it, morning glories vine and sweet potatoes vine. Petunias did not originally vine that much, but a few years ago, you may remember they came out with the wave petunias, which were more conducive for hanging baskets. Petunias are in the Solanaceae family, and so they're a different family altogether than the morning glories, although the flower shapes are somewhat similar. They behave very differently. So, Antonia, I had to look it up, but there you go. Then Jessica had asked me a question, and this is one of those things where it's just kind of out of the blue, and she said, can you explain what laminar flow is? And I'm like, sure, yeah, okay. So here you go, Jessica. One of the things that I studied in college was I took a really interesting class on fluid mechanics and how fluid flow works. Laminar flow, to visualize it, is think about like how honey or oil flows when you pour it, how it's a smooth stream, there's no ruffled edges to it, it's all going in one stream, okay? Or if you've ever poked a hole in the side of a water bucket down low and that stream comes out and it's like this nice smooth shape, and then it kind of falls apart and becomes more turbulent, that smooth area is the laminar area. Laminar flow is layers, okay? So what's literally happening is the layers of the fluid, which can be a liquid or a gas, air, for example. Literally, there's layers sliding over layers, and they're not mixing. So they talk about, a good example is like playing cards, how playing cards just slide smoothly over each other. So what's happening is the molecules in each layer are just smoothly sliding over each other, and there's no mixing. All right. It looks glassy, if you want to think of that. It doesn't have, it has smooth edges to the flow pattern. It doesn't have rough edges. And this is related to three things. It's related to something called the Reynolds number of the fluid. Okay, so the Reynolds number is proportional to, it's not exactly equal to, but it's proportional to the speed of the fluid flow, which is a function of pressure. Okay, so that's why if you poke the hole down low in the bucket, it shoots way far out, whereas if you poke it up high, it doesn't go as far because there's more pressure on the water at the bottom of the bucket. It shoots out further. Okay, so the speed, the geometry of the opening, so that has to do with the diameter really, and is it smooth or rough or whatever, and then it's divided by, those are divided by, so it's directly proportional to those two. So as speed goes up, the Reynolds number goes up. As the geometry increases in size, the Reynolds numbers goes up. And then it's inversely proportional to the viscosity. In other words, how sticky is the fluid. Okay, high viscosity fluid like honey, think honey that's been cold, or molasses that's cold, as opposed to low viscosity fluids like, you know, oils or waters or whatever. The higher the viscosity, the lower the Reynolds number. Okay, it's because you're dividing by it. So laminar flow is something that has a low Reynolds number. So very viscous fluid like honey. Think about honey when you pour it. It kind of stays in one stream or one glob or whatever. It doesn't really swirl around or do anything like that. So the more viscous the fluid, the more laminar the flow. Okay, and this, you can think about this, a good example of this, if you've ever gotten behind a semi and you get that buffeting from the turbulence from the air. Okay, that's turbulent flow. Okay, that's turbulent flow, and they'll have those air dams on the front of them that'll cause laminar flow around them. When it gets behind them, it's turbulent. So I drew a little picture here, and I don't know how well you can see it. Let's see. We'll use this. Okay, so like on an airfoil, and I'm going to link a video too that's a really good video. You've got laminar flow as an airplane wing goes through the air, but the shape of the airfoil, because it directs the air around it, the turbulence is always on the back side. You want it to smoothly slice through the air on the front side, and then what that does is that kind of disrupts the flow and you have turbulence back here. So these laminar flow lines will all be in nice parallel lines. And then how laminar this flow is has to do with the angle of attack of this airfoil wing, okay? That's why they have those. They change the angles of those things, you know. So the laminar flow is basically everything's moving parallel to each other, and then as it's forced up and over or down below, it disrupts the flow and it becomes more turbulent, and you get eddies and whirlpools and things like that in a turbulent flow region. So Jessica, I hope that helps. I hope that helps. So yeah, so that was nice to revisit my days of taking fluid mechanics for that. So it's the Reynolds number. A low Reynolds number means laminar flow. So a viscous substance has a low Reynolds number, and it has a more laminar flow than a less viscous substance. So like water, when it comes out of the faucet, that's not laminar. That's turbulent because it's all going, you know, got rough edge. It looks like it doesn't have a smooth stream edge to it. Okay. All right. So there's your science sprinkle for today. So now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about farm life, but I'll link you a video to learn more about laminar flow in the show notes, which I will remember to update this time. I forgot last week, so I'll remember this time. Okay. So here on the farm, I guess the big news in this area is the weather. What else is new? We're farmers. The Arkansas River is experiencing a historic flooding event right now. Luckily, for those of you who have asked, I am far away from the river and I live on top of a foothill, so I have no concerns at all about this in terms of my particular farm's safety. And Miss Marianne's place is also up on a hill. Even though she's quite a bit closer to the river than I am, she is up on a hill, so the horses over there will be fine also. However, this is a tragedy for our farmers. And we're expecting storms tomorrow, more rain tomorrow. To give you an idea of, today is the 28th as I'm recording this, so it is just starting to reach its cresting levels at the very western part of the state and Van Buren, and currently it is it has not crested and it's already at record levels. These are numbers that I pulled down literally just now that were updated 30 minutes ago. For example, in Van Buren, which is over in western Arkansas, right by Oklahoma, the flood stage is 22 feet and the projected crest is 42 feet. So at Dardanelle, which is just up the road from Russellville, which is the big town that I'm closest to, the flood stage is 32 feet and the projected crest is 44 feet. So, and it goes down as you get further down the river, but all of these numbers are record numbers. And so, you know, the river, and the thing is the river is rising at something like a foot an hour, or I don't even know, I don't remember. Somebody was saying that it's just, they've evacuated more areas than I've ever seen. This is the most water that we've ever seen in this part of the country in ages, and we're expecting more rain tomorrow. So, you know, it's devastating to the people in the croplands, which were just starting to dry out a little bit. I don't know how the crop farmers are going to recover from this year. I don't know that they will be able to recover this year. We did have some very strong storms. Fortunately for me, the worst of the storm went about 2 miles south of me and did some damage and actually injured a woman who lives about 2 miles as the crow flies from me. Tree fell on the shed she was taking shelter in. Miss Betsy lost a major part of a gum tree, but luckily it didn't hit anything. It just fell in the street. And we're looking for more bad weather tomorrow. Shouldn't be as tornadically bad as it was the last time, but any bad weather is bad weather. You just have to be prepared for it. So, you know, that is the big concern here. And, you know, again, you may think that this doesn't impact you, but this is the nation's breadbasket. You know, between the grain and the wheat and the corn that was lost in the Midwest flooding and the cattle, and then Arkansas is rice country. You know, these farmers are getting kicked in the face. So it's really very, I don't know, very disheartening. You try to keep your chin up and remember why you do this, and your heart breaks for those people you know that are suffering so much. I'll link some video of people trying to deal with this flooding. I know that they said that there was some concern that the levees might break at Toadsuck, and down at, apparently they'd already breached the levee down at Oakley's, which is the near Morrilton, which is where the big grain silos are at. And sadly, there were 2 barges loaded with fertilizer that hit the bridge at Webbers Falls, Oklahoma, and sank. So now all that fertilizer is in the river. It's a tough time for farmers. So, but on the other side of that, you know, things are going well here. Garden is looking good. I'm trying to stay on top of keeping it weeded and everything, but so far so good on that. The chicks and the turkey poults seem to have adapted well to being outside. The rabbits are starting to take some stress from the heat, so I'm having to start supplying them with cooling agents, whether it's the fans or the bottled water, but they're doing okay. I did lose my silver martin female, which was very upsetting. I don't really know exactly what happened. She was just, I found her, she had passed in her cage, and that was very upsetting to me, because I don't like it when I don't know why. In other cow news, I haven't found her yet, but I haven't found her, which is good news, but it's also bad news. The good news is I haven't found her remains. I talked to my neighbor. He hasn't noticed anything either, so I'm hoping that the guy with the hay pasture, she's over there. So we'll hope for that. Ellie Mae is hanging in there. She had lost a tremendous amount of weight. She was having severe stomach issues. I treated her with some stuff that I have, and I seem to have gotten her stabilized. Now I'm trying to get her to gain weight, but her appetite is just not good. And I realize that this is an end-of-life issue. She's however old she is, 12, 13 years old, and she's a big hound. I mean, I realize that her time is limited, but she doesn't seem to be suffering, and as long as she continues to eat, I'm fixing her, you know, I'm unthawing grass-fed beef and feeding it to her every day, and as long as she continues to eat, you know, and she still has good energy and is drinking, you know, maybe we'll get her weight built back up. I heard her make her seal noise the other day for the first time in a couple of weeks, so maybe that's a good sign. Penny is doing well. She has enjoyed having the chickens for company, and she's actually a good guardian pig. She keeps the predators away, seemingly, and I have been trimming. I trimmed Sally's hooves. I need to trim Little Miss's hooves as well. I've been trying to get all my work done in the morning, so I've been doing some major cleaning up and organizing projects outside, which is what I do each morning, and get that out of the way. We start our writing program, as I mentioned. We start it next week, so we'll be writing each morning. I had a great lesson on flame last week, and then we worked with bow some, so that was exciting. It's nice to get back to messing with our horses. I'm starting to shop for stallions for next year for Gusty. I think I want to breed to a Foundation Morgan. I've got a couple picked out that I really like. I want to breed to like a Foundation, because the Morgans were sort of the original American multi-purpose horse. They were good riding horses, they were good carriage horses, they were good draft horses, they were the all-around farm implement initially on the farm. So, and they're considered, the Foundation Morgans are on the Livestock Conservancy's preservation list. So I want to breed to Foundation Morgan if I can find one. Try to find one that I've picked out a couple that I really like, so I'll start planning for that for next year. I'm probably going to retire Gusty from being used as a lesson horse and as a show horse, but I'll keep her for my own riding purposes and bring her home to be a mama, and then Flame will be my primary focus this year. Still have this long-term dream of taking Flame to the Pinto Worlds and dressage, so we'll see how I do. See how I'll do with that. You know, other than that, all the animals seem to be doing really well. You know, Willie is taking his nap here. He's like, well, I'll sleep some. So it seems like, you know, here on the farm, the fruit trees look great. Everything's beautiful and green, but you know, again, I can't help but thinking about the people who are being impacted by these devastating floods. So I think that's pretty much going to sum it up here on the farm. Don't have a lot else to talk about, just kind of getting on here and taking care of the garden and starting to see some produce developing, so that's very exciting. I got my first little cherry tomato the other day, and you talk about delicious. That first bite of that first tomato every year, there's just nothing that can compare to that. So yeah, so we're gonna move on and close out with a few final thoughts. Seriously, that's the one you're gonna drink out of after I filled you up the ones you can get into? I see it's a covert operation to make your mud hole bigger. Is that good? Oh yeah. That made the mud hole a lot bigger, didn't it? The joys of a mud hole on a hot day.
Go ahead and rise. Go, 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 go. Push, push. Yes, good. Good. All right. Now sit, relax, but leg. There we go. Good. All
right. I guess you're a boy, huh? Oh, and you are too. Look at you. Look at you acting. Oh, there's 3 boys. Already y'all are acting like big boys. Hi. Hi there. Look at y'all. Okay. My final thoughts have been kind of all over the place today, but then as I was preparing for the Farmer's Almanac stuff, I read something that I really wanted to share. I realize that my point of view is not a common one in terms of, you know, I don't kill every bug I see. I don't kill every snake I see. I realize that things have a place, and I'm pretty much a live and let live person unless you're trying to cause me direct harm, or my animals are direct harm, you know, because that's part of the balance, you know, that's part of the wheel. And I catch a lot of flack for that sometimes. I think people look at me like I'm crazy, or they think I'm weird or disgusting or whatever, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people don't, if people don't understand me, I really don't worry about that too much. There was a quote that I read by a lady who is a body positivity author and speaker called Golda Poretsky, and she said, "I think fitting in is highly overrated. I'd rather just fit out. Fitting out means being who you are, even when people insist that you have to change. Fitting out means taking up space, not apologizing for yourself, and not agreeing with those who seek to label you with stereotypes." And that's one thing that I am really resistant to. You know, I get very bristly when people stereotype me. They either stereotype me because of my accent, or they stereotype me because I'm a university professor, or because I'm a scientist, and it's usually all negative, and I find that incredibly insulting and limiting. And you don't know me. If you're stereotyping me, you don't know me at all. So that was one way my mind was going, but I found something that kind of explains why I have my attitude that I do about the animals on the farm. There's two things I want to read you. This was actually in the Farmer's Almanac this month, and then I'm going to read you another short quote. But here we go, Willie. Let's see if we can read this. It says, "Far from Wall Street, our rural stock exchange thrives with unlisted commodities and functions at all hours. On Saturday, I might swap my extra laying hens for my neighbor's spare vacuum cleaner, and then on Sunday trade a box of frozen beef for pork. But every so often the transaction occurs that at first seems to be an outright loss, such as the morning when I awoke at dawn to a strange noise outside. On the single occasion I had neglected to electrify the turkey's fence, a fox had feasted. Telltale white feathers were strewn about like leaves. Still on the premises, the fox, seeing me, attempted to flee. Having already devoured a 10-pound fowl, the intruder toted another as it approached the electric mesh encircling the bird's yard. It botched its leap, dropped its prey, and became entangled in the fence. Instead of fury, I felt awe for its audacity, and now for its predicament. As the fox thrashed and panted, whining slightly in its panic, I stared at its lavish tail, elegant paws, and auburn coat. I'd never seen a fox so close. Was this a swindle? I wondered as the animal twisted and at last leapt free. Or a barter, two of my flock, for hearing the fox's getaway huff. I like that. And that made me think of a very famous author, Aldo Leopold, and a piece that he wrote that has been turned into a movie about, well, it was inspiration for turning into a movie about his life and about the interest of conservation. And it's called Green Fire, and some of you may be familiar with this quotation out of a Sand County Almanac. We reached the old wolf in time to watch a fierce green light dying in her eyes. I realized then, and have known ever since, that there was something new to me in those eyes. Something known only to her and to the mountain. I was young then and full of trigger itch. I thought that because fewer wolves meant more deer, that no wolves would mean a hunter's paradise. But after seeing the green fire die, I sensed that neither the wolf nor the mountain agreed with such a view. So that pretty well sums up my view on taking care of the land and taking care of myself. Don't let that green fire die out completely, because it's all part of that dance that we dance with nature, right? So that's where my thoughts are at today. I hope that you were all doing well. You gonna get up and tell everybody bye? You gonna wake up? I hope you are all doing well. I appreciate you hanging with me. Those of you who have my loyal, wonderful viewers, and any new viewers, I hope you have found something here that you have enjoyed. If you did, tell somebody about it, and if you didn't, then I'm sorry, and find something that worked for you. Anyway, Willie and I are sure glad that you came by to spend a little bit of time with us. So until we see y'all again, y'all be good to each other and take care of each other. And what, Willie? Peace out, y'all. Bye.